Okay, this video is going to cover page 2 of our chapter 2 notes, and we're talking about variables, and we've talked about declarations. Here we talk about declaring a variable that takes a data type and a variable name, but now we're going to get into the assignment of a variable. So an assignment in 5a, an assignment stores a value in the storage location of a variable using the assignment operator. So it stores a value in there, and we use the assignment operator, and that operator looks like an equal sign. So you can put an equal sign in there, but when we're using it in Java, we're not going to call it an equal sign. We're going to call it an assignment operator. Now the question would be, how does that relate to what we did in the role play with all the cups when we introduced variables? So let's say that we have a cup here, and we put the person's name, and let's say it was a medium cup, and so this is the declaration of a variable. So again, remember, this is a cup. Maybe I can make it look kind of like a cup. Well, close. And so we have the name of the person, and in a certain size. And so an assignment is when we store a value. And so if somebody said they wanted iced tea, if you remember, I wrote iced tea or whatever the drink was on a post-it note, and then I put it inside the cup. That's an assignment, is when you're storing something inside the storage location in the computer memory. So the named storage location. An assignment, then also we can say sometimes it updates the contents of a variable storage location. Sometimes it updates the contents. So let's say that a person has iced tea in their cup, and they want to they've drunk part of it, but they want to get maybe Dr. Pepper. So what would happen is that we would pour out the iced tea and then pour back in the Dr. Pepper, and so that would be updating a storage location that already has something in it. So sometimes you give its initial value, and sometimes you update a value that's already there. And so we're going to demonstrate that here in our code. And so as we look at our code, the question is, do you know what all these three lines are called? These three lines right here. And they have a data type and a variable. Each one of them has a data type and a variable. Now, so you should know what this is. If you don't, then this will be something to make sure you remember. But you can put in here in the comments section where you can put declarations. So these are declarations. Remember, to declare a variable, you need a data type and the name of that variable. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at line 1. Now line 1, and this is what you need to put on your notes, is a declaration, and the question is, do you remember what does a compiler do with the declaration? Well, when it sees a data type and a variable, it goes into the computer memory, finds a cell, and it reserves it as a particular size and gives it a name. And so we're going to illustrate that. One of the ways you can illustrate that is little rectangles we've done before, but you can just do it this way right here. Just type in num of dogs, and then underline it, and then that will that'll give you a memory location. That'll work. And then now that's all that line does. The compiler, all it does is goes and reserves a memory location and gives it a name. Now line 2 it also, as we've actually talked before, it stores a 10 inside. So this next one, what you can do is type num of cats, and inside of it you can put a 10. And so notice this is we've just stored something in this memory location. An assignment, remember, an assignment assigns a value or stores a value in a storage location. So this is an assignment, and notice we're using the assignment operator. And also remember that we also call this initialization because this gives the initial value at the time of declaration. So remember we talked about that in chapter 1 or in page 1. All right, then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to declare a variable called num of pets. Okay, I forgot to do this. And so num of pets. So go ahead and write that in there. And that's also just a declaration. It hasn't been initialized, so there's no values in there. All right, now the next question is, then as we look at line 5, we want to kind of title these particular lines of code. Now, what do you notice that's the same in every one of these lines? Well, they all have equal signs, only we don't call them equal signs. We call them assignment operators. Because they're assignment operators, that means they're operating an assignment. It's just like an addition operator is going to operate the addition of two things together. And so we're going to go ahead and type that in here is assignments. So you have declarations and you have assignments. And let's do that and this. All right. Now we come to this part. Now we come to an assignment. This is an assignment, and it says num of dogs. Now, how do you read this? And this is going to be the critical issue. It's how you read this is you go num of dogs is assigned 4. Okay, num of dogs is assigned 4. So notice we don't say num of dogs equals 4. That's math. This is an assignment, and so num of dogs is assigned 4. Also, we don't say num of dogs is assigned to 4. You have num of dogs sitting here, and we're going to take that. You have num of dogs sitting here, and we're going to take this 4 and assign it to num of dogs. So in here, we're going to type a 4. Or write a 4. All right? So that assignment is storing a value, as it says up in 5a, storing a value in the storage location, which we're representing like by this, in the computer memory actually, in the storage location of the variable. And how do we do that? We used the assignment operator. So you can see any line of code that you see. If you see an assignment operator, then you know something is being stored in a named memory location. Okay, so then let's go to the next one. Now the next line, do you know how to read that? So you should have said num of cats is assigned 7. And so now notice that num of cats already has a value. So it's already got iced tea in it. So in a cup. And so let's say, I don't want this iced tea anymore. I want some Dr. Pepper. So you pour out the iced tea and you pour in the Dr. Pepper. So what we're going to do, what we typically do, instead of erasing it to represent pouring it out, we're actually going to use just cross it out is good enough. So just cross it out, and then below that, go ahead and write the new value, which is going to be 7 now. And so really what we're doing is we're updating the value of num of cats. We're updating it from being a 10 to now being a 7. So that's where we get 5b. It is also a time when you update the contents of a variable. Okay, and then we go on to line 8, and it says num of cats is assigned num of dogs. Well, what that means is num of dogs is 4. And so we're going to, what we want to do then is we want to put the 4 above it, and we say num of cats is assigned 4. So therefore now we're going to update num of cats again. That's what an assignment does, is it updates. And then we go to line 9. It says num of pets is assigned num of dogs plus num of cats. Well, here's a calculation that's going to be assigned. The result of this calculation is going to be assigned to num of pets. And num of dogs is 4 right now. Num of cats is 4. So 8 is going to be stored in num of pets. So it's been initialized with the 8. Or it's been assigned an 8. Okay, so then we go on to line 10, and it's num of dogs times 3. So 12 is going to be assigned to num of cats. So this is an update. All right, so that's how assignments work. And you'll notice that what's different, the next question I asked students in class was, well, what is different about the assignments from the declarations? And if you look at them carefully, you notice all of these have a data type, and none of these assignments do. So if we were to put an assignment, let's say we put int right here, the compiler would get mad because you've already told it that a num of cats is going to be an int. And so what it would do in this line, it would go, okay, because I see a data type in a variable, I'm going to go into the computer memory and reserve a memory location as an int and give it a name num of cats. When it goes into that memory location, it sees, oh, I've already got one in here. And so it'll get mad at you, give you an error message, and it will say something like it's already been defined. And so if you then look at the last line in the first page, it says you may declare the data type of a variable only once. Otherwise, you get an error. And remember, a declaration means that you give the data type in the variable. So once you eliminate the data type, then it's going to be fine. It'll be good as an assignment. Okay, let's pause for a second. Okay, so we're going to now go on to the next section here. But before we continue, just a note of interest is that I realized that I had neglected to cross these off. And so remember to always, when you're keeping track of your memory locations, cross out the value being replaced before you write the value that is that's going to be replacing it. And then also I had forgotten to put the 8 in here for the num of pets. Now remember, at that time that num of dogs was 4, but num of cats, which had been changing, was also 4 at the time of this assignment. And so it's important that you realize it's got to be the current. The compiler is going to only see the current value, which at that time was 4. And so that's why num of pets is assigned 8. Now, a variable call is when the variable's name, so when the variable's name is used to access and use the contents of its location. Now, you might not have enough room in this blank, but just kind of do the best you can. So a variable call is when the variable's name is used to access and use the contents of its storage location. So if you think about the cups that we did on day one of last week's introduction to variables, when did we demonstrate the using the name to access and use the contents? And that was when the student asked, "Can I have my drink now?" And so what happened is I had another student come up and take their drink. Now they knew what cup had their drink in because of the name on the cup. So they went and they found the name on the cup, and then they took the contents. Of course, they took the entire thing this time, but they took the contents back to the person so that the person could drink it. In other words, use it. All right, so it's their name on the cup that allowed the student retrieving the cup to know which is the right one to take it back, and so then that other student could then drink it. So that's how that worked. That was how we illustrated this. So the question is, and we'll go ahead and go like this. The question is that when in all this code, where is the first time that a variable call happens? And so if you look at this, this is a variable name, but that's declaring the variable, the storage location. This is the same thing, declaring the storage location. Number of pets is declaring the storage location. Number of dogs is being assigned a certain amount, but the contents, the 4 is not being used. Here the number of cats is being assigned to 7, but 7's not being used. Then you come here and you go number of cats, and then if we read this, remember, is assigned number of dogs. And remember we said it's going to be assigned 4. So now we're taking this 4 from number of dogs, and we're going to use it to be assigned to another variable. And so if you can put a VC here, that means this is a variable call, because its contents, the 4, is being used in the way of being stored in another variable. So this is the drinking of the iced tea or whatever that was in a person's cup. The next time this happens is right here. And again, the 4 is going to be used. Here, number of cats at this time is all, like we already talked about, is a 4. And so this is a 4 here in a variable call. So these contents are being used to be added together and then stored in number of pets. And then the last variable call is right here, and that again is still 4 for number of dogs. And so that's being used to be multiplied by 3 and then stored in number of cats. And so that's what's happening with the compiler. It's going out here, it's finding the storage location or a cup with the person's name on it, in this case the name of the variable, and then returning the contents so it can be used. Okay, so that's how it works. And so we've already gone through all those. So now we'll go through the last thing, and that is concatenation. And so let's see, we'll go right here. So a variable, so concatenation. All right, so what happens here is you've got concatenation joins together two operands, and that's spelled O-P-E-R-A-N-D-S. So the concatenation joins together two operands using the concatenation operator, which is the plus sign. So you could just draw a plus sign right in here. Now an operand is like when you have in math, let's say you have 12 divided by 4, then this is the dividend and this is the divisor. Okay, and then in math, subtraction, you have minuend and subtrahend. Okay, those things that are being added or subtracted or multiplied, those have different names. Well, in Java, things that are being added, multiplied together, or joined together, as in concatenation, those are all called the same thing. They're called operands. And so the concatenation joins together two operands using the concatenation operator. So if you look at this example, we have we have a memory location. Is called person name, and I'm not going to do the whole thing because that'll take too long. So person name, and then in the contents are Sally Sue. So we have Sally Sue, and again, I'm not going to write the whole thing because that'll take too long. And so this is that declaration with initialization that sets up this memory location. So then we come to a print statement that's going to use the concatenation operators. All right, and so it's going to take the two operands, which are going to be this, and it's going to join them together. Okay, that's what the operation is. Now, you see person name. It doesn't type or doesn't display person name in the output because there are no parentheses, or I'm sorry, quotation marks. If you had quotation marks, it would print person name. But because it doesn't, and it's just words, then the compiler recognizes it as a name of an object. So what it does, so this is called then what we just talked about. It's a variable call. So the compiler goes out into the computer memory to all the named storage locations looking for the word person name. And it finds it, and then it returns Sally Sue. And so here it's going to say Sally Sue instead of person name. And so what happens then is that the output is going to start out with Sally Sue. All right? So the variable call, it's using the contents. It's accessing the contents of person name, and it's going to use the contents to display on the screen. And so we have a variable call, and then here, because we see the quotation marks, we recognize that as a string. So this is a string. So concatenation joins variable calls and strings together. And of course, the string has a space, OWNS, and a space. And so what it's going to do is it's going to print the space and then OWNS and then another space. Okay, so now it's going to join this. Whoa. Okay, so now it's going to join this right here with the next operand over here. So here's the next operand it's going to work with. So now this is actually kind of becomes one operand on the left, and that's right here. And it's going to be joined together with this. And this is another variable call. And of course, this here at the end is another string. And so the num of cats, it goes up here, finds num of cats, and it returns a 12. So the 12 is going to go here. And then it's going to join together to that stuff so far. It's going to take this and print literally the space and then cats. So this is going to go, man, I can't even do this right here. So 12 and then space, CATS, period. All right, so that's what this print statement will result in and display because of concatenation. All right, and so the last thing we're going to look at, I forgot to say this. So, well, you know what? We'll just write this in. If more than one concatenation operator is involved, the compiler moves from left to right. So notice from left to right, notice what we did is we used this concatenation operator and then this one and this one, left to right, joining one pair of operands at a time. From left to right, joining one pair of operands at a time. And then the final thing that we'll just mention really quickly, because we're kind of going long here, is that we're going to just say, what is the order of the stages of life of a variable? And what that is, all that's saying, and if you were to think about it, you would go, okay, the order of stages, the first thing that happens with a variable is a variable gets declared. All right, a variable gets declared and a memory location is reserved and its name is put on it. So the first thing is declaration. And so, and just to illustrate that really quick, you have a memory location is reserved. I'll just put a different name because it's short, and it's named. Maybe it's age. So that's the declaration right there. The next thing that happens is, after the declaration we talked about on page 2, now we have the assignment. And now the assignment is, of course, when you store something in it. And sometimes contents or values are stored in the memory location at the same time as declared. That's initialization. And so what happens here is that maybe the age is 12 and that gets stored in there. That's the next thing that happens. And this is in order. It can't go out of order, which we'll demonstrate in day 3 of this week. And then the last thing that happens is, as we see up here, is then the variable is called. In other words, its contents now are going to be used, in some fashion, whether it be in a calculation or to be displayed on the screen or assigned to another variable, different things like that. And so the last thing is a variable call. And so you take a cup out of your cupboard, you set it on the counter, and you say, I'm going to use this to drink. I'm going to put my name on it. And then you pour, assignment, you pour your iced tea inside of that cup. And then you pick up that cup and you drink it. That's the variable call. And that's how that works. And that's it.